I think at this stage in my life, when I think about communications and how I've experienced things in working situations and in personal situations, that it's a wellness practice. It is something that we can't improve or build on with just doing one thing. It is a daily commitment to many different things. And one of the things I know we may have been doing right now is how many, Jennifer, you're on the spot here right now, set intentions or resolutions in January. Now, I said this year I was going to avoid every virus and germ that was coming around.
Oh,
And yes, and you?
hard one.
Yes, yes. And then little easier supposedly was I was going to stop eating all the homemade cookies and chocolates that had been given to me. One friend is on this podcast where I was a great beneficiary of everybody's good cooking and generosity. January 2nd, it's doing pretty good. January 3rd, not so much. 4th, I had taped the tin shut with all the treats on it. So sometimes we have to do the small and large things that make a difference. And what was your undoing when you made your resolutions at the beginning, Jennifer?
I'll start and then we welcome other people to chime in. Mine,
Okay.
mine tend to be the same every year, Julienne, which is probably not very good because it means I'm not succeeding. Mine are to get outside more during the day. Most of us are working from home, and I find that to be actually harder to get outside. I'm not even commuting to work sometimes. And to stop working at a certain hour and feed the rest of my life and soul. So those are mine. I'm still working towards them. It's not too late yet. Still January.
Okay. And a couple other shouts out. Could be bullet points.
I was trying to drink more water.
Ah,
So I got a water bottle. That's nice.
yay.
We'll see if it
Ah,
keeps up.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the same token goes with our intentions about our relationships and our interactions. Raise your cyber hands if you have thought about this in any shape. This year will be different. There'll be no pushing of my buttons this year. More calm, less drama. A cloud of peaceful energy will follow me wherever I go 24/7. Now, on January 24th, how many has been successful with this so far? Yes? No? Any comments
Not
of what's been one another wish?
not yet for me.
Not yet, Fear. Okay, so the jury's out. So I picked this picture and I thought, you know what? If you're looking at this image, you could assume that I'm inferring that it only takes one thing to make a chance, that the perfect cup of tea or the perfect moment and everything is resolved and fixed. But no, I encourage you to take a look at my next slide, where I'm going to call forth my mother, my European mother, and what her approach to healing processes and getting better processes when a germ deigned to cross the threshold in our house in Queens. This was my reality. Now, ironically enough, I had all these ingredients in my house, with exception of vapor rub, because I couldn't just bring myself to buy the jar. And it was interesting how much she would boil, slather, made me inhale, made me swallow. And as a child, I had to assume good. I had to assume good that somehow by going through all these processes that I would someday get better. And throw in your chat, because I know you're thinking about, you're having flashbacks. What were some of your favorite or not so favorite home remedies that your granny or your auntie or your mother made you go through?
I'm sure I'm not the only one who actually enjoyed chicken soup.
Ah, that was a good one.
Molly said it as well. And Kathy.
Are you looking for bad childhood remedies as well as good?
A mixed bag. We're going to keep it very democratic because I just remember I was actually allowed to have ginger ale once in a while when I was.
Okay. Well, I'll throw into the bad category. When I was very young, my Italian parents thought pouring hot oil into my ear to help earaches was a good thing. It was not.
Okay. Anyone else? This is a place of healing and sharing.
Some people have mentioned tea, more ginger ale.
Okay. Well, they'll be interesting. You'll probably have some flashbacks later when you've remembered some of the things. Now, what I wanted to say is that one of the things too about assume good, that it gets a little trickier when it comes to our interactions with people, especially as we get older. We have history, we have dynamics that get stuck. And seeing good takes a little bit of work and a little bit of exercise. And I'm going to give you two examples that worked for me that serve as a prompt. One was a few years back when I was going to give the talk that launched this book, and I was going to speak to 500 people. I was quite nervous and scared because that was a huge group. That was a whole step up for me. And I remember thinking, like, 500 people in the audience, 500 sets of eyeballs looking up at this little middle-aged woman. They're going to say, who is she and why is she here? Well, my inner queen's voice stepped up and said, look, you got two choices. You can look at people as the enemy, or you can look at them as your newest friends. And I opted for the latter, newest friends, and it changed the dynamic of how I approach the interactions on the stage, and it also changed my approach later on in all my work. Where's my group? Who am I speaking to? Assume good and look for the good. How many of you have siblings? For my next example. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Interesting. I have an older brother. And so that is a huge dynamic. So many years ago, my parents took sick and ended up in different nursing and hospital facilities in New York. And my brother lives a great distance. And we thought we need to move them for costs. So we're going to move them to the Midwest. And I was charged to empty and sell and set them up for moving. And like I said, sell a house that they had lived in for 60 years. So every day I would do a little bit of coaching and a little bit of work about communications. But most of the time I was like a Teamster in training, packing, hauling, arranging, and thinking, oh my God, will this ever end? And it was huge. So it's the middle of the summer. It's in the 90s in New York, and you know that's tough. I go outside to cool off. It was that hot in my parents' house. And I go to look at the email stream that I had coming in, and I felt my blood pressure rising, my anger coming because my brother was sending me streams and streams of questions and to-dos and everything. And again, the inner Queen's girl voice piped up and said, listen, sister, this ain't healthy. You need to take a pause about how you're reacting. Now, I didn't send messages, but I thought, I need to assume good. I need to put myself in his shoes and see why those questions are coming. Now, was I still sweating and getting exhausted? Yes. But that day on that curb made a difference for how we were interacting and preparing for the next stages of what we had to contend with. So looking for good and assuming good is important in our interactions. And moving on. This is a slide I've had around for a while. I had came up with an expression years ago about that we had turned in, our human species had mutated. We had turned into a heads down living in a bubble species. We weren't looking up at each other. We weren't listening. And I have to say, as I keep talking to people, even today, we haven't improved a lot. We have more choices of how we interact, more intricate with our applications, and we have more options about tuning people out and not listening. So I think, unfortunately, on many days, our communication troubles and challenges are the one thing that we can all agree on. Now, think about that person who gives you some challenges and tests you and stress you. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but if it comes to mind, Jennifer or Christina can chat it out. Is there one person that really stretches you? I know my older brother tested me, but it all happens and it's a good reason. So what happens? I don't want to rush past. Any thoughts? You have that one person in mind? Okay.
Does anybody want to put in the chat a type of person in their life?
Maybe because it's recorded, they want it on public record.
Renee had shared her mom. I don't know if you heard that, Julian, or
What's
Renee.
that?
Renee has shared her mom. I think a lot of us would say a coworker.
Yes. Well, sometimes when we're thinking about it, we can start to feel like this guy, my big, angry red guy who has been with me since the beginning. And he's shown up on screens behind me on the stage as well as in my presentations. And he's always guaranteed to jolt a few people awake in their seats. Now, he's been in a state of shock for years, following around reading his text mail. And how many of us feel like we have a bit of him inside of us when we're reacting and reading our texts?
Oh, yeah.
Ah, I heard that emotional response. Yes. So it does happen. It does happen. And we have to take a step and just maybe in this moment together today, just write some of the triggers. We may not solve everything, but it really is good to see what's triggering it and thinking about what we can do large and small steps to get out of our own way. I started on a sidewalk in the middle of a heat wave to say, I'm going to shift this dynamic. What else can I be doing? And being patient with ourselves. Oh, and here's the other little fact. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes we're creating something or our comments or reaction, intended, unintended, that's setting somebody off. And the only advice I can give right now in this moment is we have to woman or human up and own up that it's us. And it's hard. We don't want to be wrong.
Julian, a tip that somebody gave me once when you feel that way is to never respond in the moment. To actually, this person actually kept a sticky on his computer that said, wait and refrain.
Excellent. Take a pause.
Right.
Don't hit send. And building on what you said, when I was coaching and doing employer relations, I would encourage people to write things, but not put names in the sender. Hit save, come back in the next day in the morning and read it again and print it and read it. You know, not being eco-friendly, but it could save you a lot of headaches. So I agree, hitting a pause, reframing it. And we'll get to some of that, what you just mentioned in a minute.